Media independence is called as the fourth pillar of the democracy, and it is clearly under threat in India. Our rank in Press Freedom Index is drastically dropping over the years. As per World Press Freedom Index, India retains 142nd out of 180 places and remains one of the world's most dangerous countries for journalists. Below Nepal and Sri Lanka, along with Pakistan, which is ranked 145th in the world. Several news channels in this country have become mouthpiece of the ruling party, and shows have started peddling fake news. Profound example of this would be how when this ill-fated demonetization announced, several prominent news channels started saying there was a GPS chip in the new currency notes connected to the satellite. Also, due to social media and internet, willingness of people to pay for news has drastically reduced, and this has forced media houses to depend on the powerful business houses, partisan actors for funding. This in turn destroys democracy, and this is a global problem not confined to India. With this, I would like to introduce our panel. The first is Dr. P.T.R.Palanivel Thiaga Rajan, who is the Honorable Minister of Finance and Human Resources. I would like to thank him profusely for his time, in spite of his very busy schedule. Before coming into politics, he was a managing director of Standard Chartered Bank Global Offshore Markets, and he's an alumnus of MIT Sloan School of Business. Next is Mr. N. Ram, who's a veteran journalist. No introduction is needed. He's a former editor-in-chief of The Hindu and the current director of the Hindu Group Publishing Company. He has been awarded B.D. Goenka Award and Padma Bhushan. He holds masters in journalism from Columbia University. Yulia Kashe, associate professor. Yulia Kashe is an associate professor at CIANSPO, where she focuses on political economy, democracy, and future of media. She's an author of the best-selling book Saving the Media and Price of Democracy and How Money Shapes Politics. She was also my teacher at CIANSPO, where she taught Future of Media. It was one of the best courses that I've ever attended. She has a PhD from Harvard in economics, and she's an alumnus of the elite École Nationale Supérieure and Paris School of Economics. And next is Siddharth Vardharajan, who is founder of The Wire, a digital news platform. Previously, he was editor of The Hindu. He has taught journalism at University of California, Berkeley. In 2005, Siddharth was recipient of Bernardo O'Higgins Award by President of Chile, highest award for citizens of foreign nationality. He is an alumnus of London School of Economics and Columbia University. And not the least, our other speaker would be A.S. Panneerselvan, who's also been very active in the Dravidian Professional Forum, and he has previously been the reader's editor of The Hindu, and he was a fellow at Oxford in the Reuters Institute. ASP had already told me that because of his issues with throat, he may not be able to speak much. And before I open the panel for discussion and I invite the minister to start, my fellow coordinator and Pugal wanted to make some comments.
The introductory. Thank you, Dharani. Thank you, distinguished panelists and participants. Press is the fourth pillar in the democracy, which plays a major role in upholding the principles of democracy by providing information to common man and empowering him to question the acts of any government. While in recent times, the growth of media industry is phenomenal and it is equivalent to the value of some of the large industries in the country, the quality of the media has been questioned due to the mushroom growth of media houses. While many are still impartial and maintain the standards, some tend to be biased and favor the ruling establishment. The media in India has played a disproportionate role in shaping public perceptions of politics and electoral outcomes. However, the government control over the media have also increased over a period of time with limited freedom for the press. Sedition laws are frequently invoked against journalists and others who question governmental actions. Some journalists were able to get easy access and patient hearing even with the judiciary, and some languish in jail without any judicial recourse. Like any other constitutions in the world, the Constitution of India guarantees freedom to press in the form of freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a). However, the same can be restricted by the state under the clause reasonable restrictions, including public morality under Article 19(2), and the state has enacted various laws and taken various other measures to keep the media under control using these provisions, which is quite a point of contention with the state always. No doubt, the freedom of press needs to be ensured. However, there is also a concern with the penetration of internet and consequently the spread of social media, which tend to replace the mainstream media. Whether the same protection available to regular mainstream media can be extended to social media is the question one needs to address. With lack of proper regulatory framework, lack of proper censorship, the speed in communication, particularly the two-way unregulated communication public space, makes social media different and distinct from regular media. Social media is often used to propagate targeted messages and targeted public discourse, disrupting public peace and tranquility. Even the law enforcement agencies find it difficult to control this. Courts in India are rather extending the protection under freedom of speech and expression to social media users, rather abusers, without drawing a fine distinction between regular media and social media. If proper distinction is not drawn between the protection available to social media and regular media, it will not only lead to abuse of social media, but also dilutes the genuine protection available to the mainstream media and thus will pose a threat to freedom of press. Of course, in any society governed by rule of law, there is always a conflict between the fundamental right of an individual and collective liberty of the society, and state has a duty to maintain a balance between the two. Recently, our Finance Minister, Dr. P.T.R., in the state budget, announced setting up of a social media monitoring cell to monitor social media, taking the discussion and debate to a next level in regulating social media, as otherwise an unregulated social media will tend to disturb the equilibrium between the individual liberty and collective liberty. With this, now I would like to request our Honorable Finance Minister, Dr. P.T.R. Thiaga Rajan, for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Puhal Gandhi. Thank you, Dharanidharan, first for arranging such a wonderful panel and then for inviting me. I'm certainly not qualified to speak in such distinguished company, but I'm here more as the founder of the DPF to first welcome and thank all our brilliant panelists for agreeing to spend some time with us. And second, as a lifelong student, to see if I can learn something from the discussions. But having engaged here, I'd maybe just throw out a couple of thoughts that have been running in my mind. Of course, at the national level, the media is dominated by the ruling party, and we have seen the degradation all the way from, alleged speaking truth to power, to keeping quiet, to becoming acquiescent tools, to becoming blatant tools of misinformation and propagation of false news. So, on the one hand, I despair that the amount of money, and as Dharani pointed out, the lack of lucrative business models without getting into bed with some of these guys. And I think especially the nexus between Facebook, Reliance, and the ruling party that has recently been exposed by the Journalists Without Borders is the prime example. So, whatever the systems of democracy, the institutions that were built to prevent this kind of capture, to prevent this kind of monopoly, oligopoly, whether it's in the markets or in the news or in elections, seems to be failing. And yet, after all of that, if I look in Tamil Nadu over the last 5 years, 2-3 election cycles, including the local body elections, maybe 4 or 5 election cycles, somehow the BJP is not able to penetrate the ecosystem and not able to kind of continue or achieve the kind of threshold of disinformation, misinformation, and control of the media, either through lit social media where we can track it, or through WhatsApp, or through anything else. And I often wonder, what is it that makes us different? Is it that we have a different language? Is it that the culture is so rooted? Is it that we have such high education levels and we have such high penetration of the internet all the way to the rural hinterlands that almost everybody has a has a smartphone, and therefore people are getting information from multiple sources all the time. And other than this niche, which I will, in my experience, for those who didn't know, I set up and ran the DMK IT wing for a while, for a few years. In my experience, the most vulnerable to this kind of false propaganda and sense of kind of, what can I say, jingoistic identity politics were upper class, idle rich, relatively not engaged in the economy, relatively, old money, relatively bemoaning the loss of their dominance or the loss of their exclusive status, and looking for some reason to feel that they were patriotic or somehow contributing to society when they were not. That slice, very narrow slice, was susceptible to it. but the BJP never seemed to get past that. And I don't say the BJP for any other reason other than that they are the ruling party. They have tens of thousands of crores in electoral bonds and they dominate the media. That's all I mean. It could be any party, but the ruling party. So what is it that makes us different? What is it that prevents that kind of domination of the media? And what is it that separates us? What lessons can we learn from it for the rest of the country? These are some things that I think about, and I'll just leave them out there. Welcome everybody again, and conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your amazing introductory speech. And I also would like to thank you for your time.